she went to Rutgers. For some reason, I want to say Tufts all the time. So I thought it'd be really helpful. Kelly has really led the process to develop the design guidelines and develop the visual preference survey, the template that we used, and done a lot of research. So I thought it'd be great to have her here and kind of walk through kind of what I provided in the draft memo to you, the memo to you on where we are in the process, kind of focusing in on how we've used the results of the survey that's informed the development of the preliminary draft design guidelines. So turn it over to Kelly, and then kind of end with where we are in the process and our next steps and our discussion from there.
Thank you. Good evening, Mary Councilmembers. As Director Tech mentioned, we'll be looking over the just a little bit of background information first. So again, we just have a map showing the Maple Avenue commercial zone, and again, we are discussing the update of the process to develop these design guidelines, and as well as amendments to the map code based on what we've seen in the survey and some of the design guidelines that we're proposing. So staff has started conducting research and looking at ways to gather community feedback, including all the design guidelines as well as about the map. We determined that the online digital preference survey was the best method, and we got a really great response, much better than we had hoped. We're really pleased with it. And of course, as you remember, the survey looked at images representing different characteristics. It ranged in architecture styles, streetscape elements. It was trying to get a broad range of what we could see along Maple Avenue. The survey was open for just almost 2 months, almost a full month, and we did receive over 1,000 verified in-town responses from both businesses and citizens. Since that time, we have been doing a working group, meeting sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, but constantly coming back and looking at, okay, here's what we saw in the survey. And we'll see in the next slide in a moment, the top 10 images that got a good score. What do those images tell us?
When you say working group, who are you referring to?
So it was a group of 4 staff members, as well as the mayor, the chair of the board of architectural review, the vice chair, and the town manager.
And do you have meeting notes for these meetings?
Not handwritten notes. It was more we would kind of look at the drafts, look at images, say yes, this image works, this image doesn't. It was more of a loosely run meeting, not very specific. So these are the top 10. These are the 10 images that scored an average score of 3 stars or more, and this ranged from building architecture section, the building design and form, as well as the site design and landscape. And what we found is that sometimes the images wouldn't specifically just show one thing or the other. We find elements of it that worked for other parts of the design guidelines. We did use every single image in the top 10 images of that scoring throughout the guidelines. So there's actually one image used twice, but every single one is in the guidelines. Looking at, as we started crafting it, kind of bringing it into a form, we kind of make sense, and how do we then interpret what we saw. We have introduction, which kind of gets into the basics of what is the Maple Avenue vision, what's the review process. So if you're new to this development process, you can see step by step. It's also repeated again in the Maple Avenue code. And then the 2 sections actually starts page numbering, and the 2 sections: building design and form, and then the larger site design and streetscape. And the next few pages just show examples. Yes. Sorry.
Going back, slide about, we looked at pictures that had a score of 3 or higher.
Yes.
So what was a number? If they had 100, 200 each picture, there will be 1,076 responses. The picture on the left there,
Yes.
how many people thought that was too high? So 100 people, 200 people?
We have all the overall survey results, as well as the presentation that we gave to the board record review is on our Maple Avenue Vision page. So it'll tell you exactly, what this is the average of all 1,064. It tells you the exact 3.2 or whatever that average star rating was. So you had an option of 1 to 5 stars.
I think this is a survey, it would be nice to show that, you know.
And we have that in the full, all the survey results are on the Maple Avenue Vision page on the website. And it's been up since the survey closed.
Well, I guess my follow-up question to Howard's is, well, that's useful. It would be interesting to know which design criteria map to these images that incorporate the guidelines. Not kind of explicitly not there which image goes to what, but if we're looking at the image in the upper right corner, what elements does that image talk to? And specifically speak to? One of my concerns about the survey was how do we understand as council, how does it map into the design guidelines? The other piece of the puzzle is, I also understand there's supposed to be a summary of the myriad of comments and the classification of those as it relates to the design guidelines. Is that also on the further architectural review?
We did not summarize the answers. All of the votes are included. The full survey results, including all comments, are on the survey, on the Maple Avenue Vision page.
I was under the impression we were categorizing as some map.
Not going to do that. I would not advise ever characterizing comments. The comments stand for themselves. We have read all of the comments. We can make general characterizations overall, but I would not,
Well, if the comment talks about building height, I would hope that it ends up in a group related to
generally,
building height, generally, is my point.
taken those comments. We've taken comments we received for specific MAC projects, comments we received as part of the public hearing on the MAC amendments that the Planning Commission held last summer. All those comments have informed the numerous amendments that are going to be coming forward to changes to the MAC themselves. But I personally have done that in the past, and that has not been well received. When you try to characterize and summarize what someone said, some things get lost in translation. So I prefer to have those comments stand for themselves. We have read all of those comments.
So what are those comments now on the website?
They are on the website.
All the
Everything's on the
website.
website. It's been on the website since the survey
So
closed.
the raw results, including comments, are all in the document on page.
I have a related question. I think it might help to have a presentation on the survey results. I understand that this is drawn from the survey results, but,
We haven't had that.
right, and I've read the raw information on the website, but
Yeah, I actually printed out, I'm not very, to be very well organized for your preference for the folders. I printed out the survey results, looked at them, I would like to have a briefing, work session, public meeting, I hope we had that. You know, it's nice to say it's there, and I printed out, summarize it.
We did step to provide a presentation that is up on the website, at Board of Architectural Review, sometimes and all of the results of the survey.
We do that.
We are going to do a version of this presentation to the
Which is
Planning Commission.
BAR,
Correct.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the Town Council, I just talked with the director about this, as you asked the question. We can have a presentation on February 25th, 2 weeks, on the survey. We do have survey results. We do have us based on the agenda to do that.
That's a work session for council?
No, it's a council meeting, and we have presentation time at the beginning. And so we can, if the council wants, we can do it as early as February 25th, or if the council wants to do it at a different date. You good?
So again, so this is just an example, should a few, not all pages, but a few of the pages showing, for example, so this is where the images were shown exactly as they were. In another example, you'll see that we would zoom in on certain elements that met with that guideline section. So this is a section about, this one is about the top of the building. So you'll see that crop part of the image to focus on that top, or the gathering space. So we cropped the gathering space and used that part of it. But the images were always used in the guidelines. And again, this is the one that was used twice. So it's, the image itself, and then also focusing on that varying roof line that, scores. We would include that in the building bridge section. Now, in addition to using images, we also created some renderings that was the staff and the chair of the VDR worked with us. So we've got the SketchUp that's mimicking what we saw in the photos. You know, we saw the step backs, we saw the variation in architectural styles and elements. So we tried to mimic those photos in the SketchUp renderings to show just roughly, okay, the top, this is what we're talking about, this top area. And we're talking about the middle, this area. And then also plan views, sections, just kind of giving more of a understanding of each section that we're talking about in each guideline.
My understanding is that staff is suggesting to make it wider out front on sidewalks, can you possibly do that?
That is one of the things that we look at when we're looking at the survey results. The wider sidewalks, 100% all scored very high. It does very easily see.
What do we do with our existing, the road back on like 380? What are not going to do? Why?
No, we wouldn't be able to have them meet new guidelines. We're already through the process. But one of the things that we looked at with this also, even if you'll, not shown this one, but how the sidewalk is shown with the brick patterning, that it can transition well to the other, even existing sites. So if we already have just concrete walk, we're having a mix kind of to blend well in between. So it'll undulate, you know, the sidewalk area along Maple Avenue.
So in terms of next steps, the preliminary draft design guidelines were posted for the VAR's Board of Architectural Review's work session that they will be discussing this Friday. And their work sessions are held in the morning at 8 o'clock. So right now they are scheduled for this Friday to discuss the preliminary draft design guidelines. And then coming out of that is up to, it's really at the direction or determination of the chair if he wants to schedule any additional work sessions.
We have those up to the public stage.
They are.
Not sterile, 2 sentences, whole pack.
The preliminary draft design guidelines were posted last week.
The same thing as
Yes,
that.
yes.
There, okay.
They were posted for the VAR, they were posted for the council's work session this evening, they were also posted for the planning commission this evening. The planning commission, though, is focused on proposed amendments to the map. So at their work session this Wednesday, we have 3 items, and we'll be doing basically this presentation to the planning commission, just trying to provide some context and key them up for a more detailed discussion next week. So we're having a special meeting / work session starting and the 13th and the 20th. Both those work sessions are starting at 6:30. So next Wednesday, it'll be a all math work session. We're looking at probably a 4-hour work session. And then we do not have any agenda items for the planning commission meeting on the 27th. That I've talked to the chair, and we're looking at having another work session on February 27th to then go back
So we
through.
have 3 meetings.
We'll have 2 in-depth meetings. This Wednesday, we're just gonna do the presentation we're doing this evening to you, to the council, to the planning commission, just provide some context. So then,
I'm just concerned that, we have a budget work session coming up, we're going to have meetings in March. I work full time, and I want to meet people to death. There's no sense of urgency, but we have to do this fast, because you're right. And I'm just concerned is, we have planning commission to work full time. Come down at 6:30, 4 hours, and at a third meeting.
they are anxious to get the work on this. They've held off on having any work sessions on the map while we worked on developing the preliminary draft design guidelines. So,
I think we should leave it up to the planning commission to decide.
No, I just wasn't, I think, I don't want to burn people out.
But I've heard from multiple members of the planning commission that they are anxious and ready to get to work, and they're willing to put the time in to get this done, and that they are looking forward to this process, and that meeting at 6 o'clock is not an undue burden for them.
Again, you have people who work, and you're concerned that you burn people out.
But I think we should listen to the feedback from the planning commission rather than deciding for them when is the best time for them.
the meeting's at 6:30.
Right. 6:30.
We're at the end.
Yeah.
So you're proposing that March 6th, which is a Wednesday, that we would have a joint work session with the council, the planning commission, and the VAR. And the idea here is that we all come together, the VAR can say, here's where we are with the design guidelines, the planning commission, here's where we are at the map. And the idea is that over the course of March, we want to get these documents into still working documents. We want to go back out to the community at the end of March to get their feedback on the big ideas. So when you look at the schedule that I provided, and I highlighted in yellow when the visual preference survey was open to the public, and that was in the fall, October to early November. And I think it's important, this process is different than the process we normally follow to do amendments, text amendments to the zoning code. We normally don't have public meetings on text amendments, but because these text amendments to the MAC are coupled with new design guidelines, I think it's really important that we get back out to the community and get their feedback on what we're working on. So we want what we bring back out to the community to be something that we are all supportive of and meets with the town's vision. But it's important, we don't want it to be polished because we still want feedback on it. So I think it's just important that we circle back and get back to the community. And that's why we scheduled up 2 community workshops. We've already reserved the space at the community center. It would be a Friday night, and then another opportunity on early Saturday morning.
And March 6th, height and density will be discussed.
Yeah, everything will be on the table.
Can I ask, so for those 2 sessions, if you can't make it, let's say someone's away Friday and Saturday, is there any opportunity for them to get feedback outside of that?
We're going to Facebook Live it. Like to have a video up, and then we'll look at ways for the public to provide input if they're not able to attend. But we want to use.
We're going to talk about early height and density when we meet.
It doesn't have to be just one meeting. That's
Correct. We've got all of March, so if we want to schedule additional work sessions or have.
We have budget work sessions in March. You know, I'm just, I said to me before, again, you're loading up down March. We have 4 meetings down March.
You have 4 meetings because of the budget.
Right, another than that.
You have a Saturday.
All day Saturday and Monday, and so I'm just.
This is all I got my, I mean, you have the detail.
Yeah, thanks. I was
I
looking
mean,
at our slides tonight.
I'm really glad that we're discussing these topics. Thank you very much for scheduling the meeting. So Town Council, Planning Commission, and the bar on March 6th. Positives and negatives. The positives, you have a lot of smart people in the room. They have a lot to offer. The negative is if you have a limited amount of time, then you have a limited amount of time for each individual in that group to talk. So with proposed amendments to the MAC, I mean, there could be a lot, right?
May need to continue, depending
Right.
on how long.
Then we got more meetings every night.
So, I think
Yeah,
the,
that's what I'm saying, yeah.
okay, yeah, the last Town Council Planning Commission session, we talked about a lot of different issues and we moved forward with the non-controversial, with the consensus ones. I think that's leaving, potentially controversial ones for this round.
Right.
And I'm just not sure, was it a 2-hour meeting on the 6th? This is an ambitious schedule. I'll just put it that way. I think it's going to be tough to get through all of it. Now, I also don't know, how are we going to proceed in the meeting? We've got, I don't know, if you add up TC, PC, and bar, how many people are there? And do you need a consensus between everyone in the room, or we're going to do nodding of heads, or how does that work? It's not going to be unanimous, I can tell you that.
So at that point, both the planning commission and the board of architectural review will have gone through and they'll have recommendations. So we will have working drafts coming from both of those bodies. And it really would be an opportunity for you as the council to ask questions of them and understand what they're proposing.
Yeah, and as it relates to, how to proceed forward, I think that's for the town council, for each body to decide. So, you could end up with a majority of council members, planning commission members, and BAR members thinking one way, and the minority thinking another. And so I think it's up to the council how to proceed if you don't have a unanimous thought about whatever it is. That's something that I think is a role of the town council to decide how to move forward. That is not a staff role, that's a
Yeah,
role,
and
it's a role for
the
the
tricky
council.
part with that is you can't vote in work sessions, I understand it.
Yeah.
So
Oh, sure, and no one's.
how do you,
Right.
how do you resolve the conflict?
Right, I'm not suggesting a vote at all, but I think it'll be pretty clear. I think to determine which council members think one way and which council members think another way, and even if a third thought process, But I think ultimately after that meeting, or a series of meetings, the council as a whole is going to have to figure out and say, okay, this is our direction. I mean, I think it's the council's responsibility to do that.
And leading up to that, I think it's important, I think it's necessary that council members get an opportunity to speak their ideas as opposed to respond to other people's recommendations. Because this is a pretty big issue around town, so. If folks have ideas, I know I have some ideas. I presented some at the last joint session in writing. I don't know if those were considered, I hope that they were. I'd like an opportunity to either re-present that, or depending on how this conversation goes, present new ideas based on the recommendations from PC and Bar. So how would that work?
So, my observation is, I appreciate council's point that this whole thing wraps up before the next council takes place. However, I think the schedule as presented is unrealistic. I think it's unrealistic.
Well, I agree.
And I think the biggest reason I think it's unrealistic is I don't think we can, I honestly don't think we can turn around the comments from these meetings to post them publicly and far in advance of the meetings so the public can see them and we can see them before the meetings. For example, the two community workshops, Friday and Saturday, VR meets on Friday, has to get posted by when? What? Legally by Wednesday? No, that's not going to work. That's not even fair to the people in the audience or even want to look at the material and show up at the meeting, let alone the Board of Architectural Review. There's a number of these cycles where we'll be barely able to meet the statutory requirement to get stuff posted. And given our recent experience, I've got some real concerns about that. So I think it's unrealistic. And we need to take a step back and provide some serious consideration to the turnaround of staff's level of effort, posting in advance of the meetings, and the meeting dates and times. Secondly, and this is related to the overall moratorium, I think we need to have a conversation about how the moratorium relates to transportation land use of the And we need to have that conversation because, in my opinion, if we're not having both conversations, we fail the community. Simple as that.
And so to address the first part of the statement, and that's the purpose of this meeting tonight, and displaying the schedule, just as we have, is a tentative suggested schedule that we can absolutely modify. And it was the purpose of this meeting was actually to talk about the schedule, talk about the pacing of it, how does the council feel about it, is the council comfortable with it, and we can absolutely alter this schedule.
So just to what Councilor Russell said is, go through this, I think it's unrealistic. We have other things we need done, and the budget, we have a lot of stuff we have to get done. And, you know, we can't have this suck all the time. This is a big issue around town, building height and that. And but we have other things, you know, we have the transportation safety folks here, it's very important here, you know. We have other things going on, and so, you know, we don't do this full time.
Right.
You know, like we don't.
I have a question. Was this timeline put into place in order to meet an end at the moratorium and you worked back? Is that how it was done? And maybe there was a strategy, and maybe we should hear from staff as to maybe there's a specific reason why the process was put into place.
Well, we actually have a more aggressive schedule that we, as we started having our working group meetings and developing the draft of the design guidelines, realized that that didn't take the time it needed to take. So as that was kind of coming together, I wanted to provide a couple months for the boards and commissions and council to be able to get the drafts into a good working draft so we get back. My concern is getting back to the community. I don't want too much time to elapse between when folks took the survey and when we kind of come back to them with the big ideas coming out of the survey. So that's the driver too, and I think we've got time to get to the end of March with those working drafts. Following on that, it was just, I think we're going to be in a good place with what we've got just because we really are taking the time And on the design guidelines, which is this is a new document, new information, because the chair and vice chair have been so involved over the last 2 months in developing them, I think that's gonna get through. They are, more easily than maybe what the planning commission has the really heavy lift here, with all the various amendments coming out of the design guidelines related amendments that have already previously been discussed, and amendments, that staff is going to be proposing, in an effort to, be clearer and provide more clarification, in the code. So, but I think we get to March, it's from there, I just tried to kind of put together a reasonable, what I thought was a reasonable time frame. And it does get us to adapting, being able for the council and the planning commission to hold public hearings and make the planning commission make recommendations, the council adapt the amendments to the MAC and the design guidelines before the moratorium. And I will say, I mean, there's only, because the council's schedule with the budget, all the budget related meetings, and the fact that there was only one council meeting at the beginning of June, just because we may have got the opportunity to have maybe a special meeting, because there's only there's one meeting a month through the summer. But this, I agree, the schedule, we should take the time needed. But on the planning commission, they are ready. I mean, they've been ready to really roll up their sleeves, and they take their responsibility in making recommendations on amendments very seriously, and they're ready to get to work. So I think we're good to, to the workshop. What comes out of the workshop, if we come out of these workshops and the community is like, oh, no, then yeah, we're gonna have to maybe starting all over and take another 6 months, but I don't wanna
My office
dispose
suggestion
with this.
is that whoever the next council meeting is following the workshop, that we have a report out from the planning staff and identify a vote to extend the moratorium. And for multiple reasons in my mind, one of which is completing this appropriately with the time frame necessary. And the other conversation I want to have at least is the relationship of the moratorium to the transportation planning stuff.
So if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're saying after the March 29th to March 30th
Work session.
work session, the very next, which would be the April 8th town council meeting, is when you.
Well, I think I guess we have to go back to the planning commission because it's an extension of the moratorium and there has to be public hearing, and so there's a process involved. So
Right.
that's my kind of break point for wherever that process
Well, there's a
initially
date,
occurred.
isn't there a date that was determined?
That we had to-
Right,
we
that
had
we
to
wanted to extend it, because we needed additional time,
Yeah.
we need to identify by that.
So there's, but my understanding is it has to go back to the planning commission, or public hearing to planning commission, an item of business in the planning commission, recommendation to the council, we have to have a public hearing, and we have to have a vote,
Right.
which could be a public hearing. So there is some time in there relative to the June 30th date. There's some time there if we choose to proceed as well, but I think we need to have that break.
So it sounds like you're saying that, so the first part, you're good with the March 6th.
I think we need to keep moving
Yeah, March
forward.
6th.
I think we need to find out where the public stands on this.
March
And have a-
29th,
Right.
March 30th, and then after that, at that break point is when the planning commission considers the moratorium on the map question.
Yeah.
Which is after
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah,
then-
because I think when we come out of those two public input sessions, we might decide we need another public input session. Like, there may not have been enough time to listen to all of the,
I'm also concerned about the feedback to be heard in the following week.
yeah, I think that that's not, that's not
Right.
wrong.
So another discussion is, I know, I'm working back and forth, I'm getting a lot of pushback about the Chick-fil-A. Now, I go home, my wife says, is that what you voted for? It looks like a Soviet building. Now, we're hoping this will be nice, but Don't look too good, and people are not happy about that, so they see that, they see what potential is coming down. Now, hopefully they'll change the thing.
They already did, it's already started.
I know that,
The
but
structure.
The structure is not.
But I know that people are like, this is enormous. And that's a real issue. If you're not doing that, you know, that's what I'm hearing. And I've asked you guys, I said, you know, people say, I didn't realize you were giving out the right way. I said, I don't think that was there in the plaza. But, you know, again, it looks like a Soviet building.
Not finished.
I realize it's not, but again, Linda, these are the comments people are making. If we're not, we don't hear the comments, don't hear the comments. These are the comments people are making.
Some people, yes.
I know why people are.
So we're good with the timeline up to March 30th, and then we're going to.
Need a checkpoint.
Checkpoint with the planning commission, a question of the moratorium and the max at some point in April.
Margaret, I'm still concerned about the structure of the meeting itself.
Yeah.
Town council, planning commission, bar, by my count, is roughly 20 people.
Yeah.
What is how do you talk in a meeting with 20 people?
Because there's two, we've got, the Board of Architecture Review is the lead on the design guidelines. The Planning Commission, in their role, is the lead on making recommendations to the text amendments. And at the end of the day, the council is the decision maker. You either vote to approve or not approve of what comes before you. So we just thought it'd be really helpful to have all of those bodies in one room so that you, the council, can ask questions of both the BAR and the Planning Commission as to what they're recommending. And that's really, is just so.
I would like to do more than just ask questions and respond to other people's recommendations. I would like to present ideas. What is the forum? When is the forum? Where is the forum? What is the forum in which a council member can present ideas? I think I've been patient in saying I'll go along with the structure. So let's talk about it. What's the structure? When do we get to talk and present ideas?
So we, in the amendments that the Planning Commission will be discussing, and the MAC amendments at their work sessions this month, those are coming from a variety of places. So again, there are amendments that are recommended based on the design guidelines. There are amendments based on prior discussions that the Planning Commission and Council have had on proposed recommendations coming out of the MAC ad hoc committee. There are a number of amendments that staff is proposing that reflect concerns from the community, concerns from staff, concern from, so they're coming from a number of places.
So,
But I think to answer the heart of the question, I mean, at any point, any of the 7 council members can submit specific recommendations with regard to height density, any aspect of this. They could be submitted tomorrow, next week, submitted to Cindy's office, whatever those suggestions are. And I would suggest that at that March 6th meeting, if any number of council members would like to, present what's been submitted and say, okay, this is what I'd like to see, and present it in that setting and say, you know what, this is what's important to me. And I think that's where you can have that synergy of the discussion amongst council members.
I appreciate that. What I found frustrating last time was that I presented a document and we had a lot to cover. So it was basically just kind of passed around at the end and there was no serious discussion. And what happens is that everybody has things to do. We got a budget to pass, as you pointed out.
right.
Planning Commission has tons of business, right? But then, when those recommendations just go wherever they are, I mean, I don't know where they are.
Right, well,
Do you guys have a copy of it?
Well, a copy of.
The recommendations I submitted at the last Planning Commission attempt? Okay.
Yes. So, yes, the purpose of this meeting, the express purpose of this meeting on March 6th is this time. So it's, as much as you have 3, 4, 5, 6 ideas and you want to present them, you'll have plenty of opportunity and then any other council member as well to say, here are my suggestions, this is what I would like the other council members to consider, and it'd be a robust discussion on that.
And there's 7 people here. I would not say I need more than 1 out of 7 of the time. But I think it would be, the last thing I'm going to do is come in here and say, everybody has to talk about my ideas.
Sure.
But just some sort of forum to talk as opposed to respond.
Oh, absolutely, it should be conversational, and I would even suggest that this is so important that, you know, let's say we have 4 or 5 different council members that have very different views that we'd like to discuss, and we just run out of time, we can have another meeting a different night. So, I mean,
So, let me, after council, we run a county, we discuss not letting the developers count, leaving things in the front of them. Some people have said, maybe we should have a 3-story map instead of a 4-story map, you know?
Well, I think all those things are on the table. I mean, I think
Right,
that
right,
I think whatever you choose to discuss, if there's something that you want to bring up and discuss, then come prepared to the meeting to have a robust discussion on the points that you're willing to discuss. Because I think each one of us have some ideas about what we'd like to see with the updated MAC guidelines. And I think the planning commission, well, then bring that up. So then the planning commission and the VAR have also kind of taken a lot of the things that they've heard and recommendations from staff and from the community and are putting those together as a package for us to talk about. But I think that if any council member has specific ideas, then bring them on to the meeting and let's talk about them all together. And, you know, it can be, I can put it together in some sort of presentation so that you're presenting it to the body rather than just your reactionary discussion on well, I don't want that, but I want this. Come prepared with your list of things that you want to see in the MAC and let's throw it all out on the table and see what sticks.
Well, and I would also say this visual design guideline is a first draft.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not,
Right.
you know what I mean, so staff put some of it together, we gave some feedback, it's a first draft. So there's pictures that they wanted to incorporate, obviously all the pictures that were the highly rated ones, but then there's some others. Maybe we switch some others out, maybe you modify it. So I think it's considered a first draft to say, okay, here's a starting point. Let's see how this is. There's certain verbiage that you want to change, some things you want to update, whatever. But it is, I think some of it's, you know, good, some of it needs, you know, looking at. So that's just how it, you know what I mean?
Going to comment on how do we work through this joint meeting on the 6th. It looks like there's 2 planning commission meetings, one on the 13th and the 20th. And MAC, the actual specifics of MAC amendments or ideas will be discussed by the planning commission through those meetings, correct?
And they may schedule another meeting on the 27th.
All right, that's fine. My question is, and this is something from both VAR and the planning commission, I think will be necessary for us to have our conversation, is what is the set of ideas that have come in? And what was their resolution through VAR for the planning commission? Was it accepted and modified, rejected outright? And where did that idea come from?
So
Because that would be very helpful for me personally to understand where would this come from the ad hoc committee as reservation X? Or was it modified?
So right now, the MAC is a track changes document, and I have noted where the changes are coming from.
Okay.
If they're out of the ad hoc committee, if there's something that came out of the committee that the planning commission and council discussed already,
Natasha?
if, they're not specific to any, individual, but they're related more to groups of
Okay.
individuals. So if there was a discussion, if the, at a work
Council had a
session.
discussion and
Yes.
the ideas A, B, C, D, E were presented.
So I will keep tracking any changes that are made to that working document as it goes to the planning commission, and you'll receive that document.
So which meeting is the planning commission actually going to discuss the ruling changes in the map itself?
Starting on the 20th.
20. So, this is just my observation, is for myself, I would want ideas that I have to at least go through some sort of review, opinion, et cetera, from the planning commission before they end up back with us. Because I may have an idea, and the planning commission will look like, are you guys nuts? What do they say is great? But I'd be interested in that feedback. So that's just for me, at least. I have a whole bunch of comments on guidelines, like the presentations.
And one suggestion that I have related to what Councilman Mosley was asking about how all this can work. So, like I just mentioned, you could submit something tomorrow, next week, but I think that the best thing for the entire council is that if council members would submit maybe something to Cindy, and this can be a modified idea, but this is just going out there, something submitted to Cindy by maybe the 20th of this month or 27th. A week or two in advance of the March 6th meeting. I mean, what I'm suggesting is not coming to the March 6th meeting with the ideas and all your other 6 colleagues are looking at this cold. But maybe in some way, maybe it's the 20th of February or 27th, something gets to Cindy and then it's sent out to all the council members just to observe, not to react by email and say, I have this opinion or not, but just to see it, observe it.
Receive and be able to
receive it,
read.
and then take it in for a couple of
Can you
weeks.
throw a word into the vernacular? Docket.
Sure.
Right, so, you know, we're not a huge agency with thousands of staff, but the concept of a place that we can put documents for public review could be helpful.
Absolutely. So when you say public view, so it could go to the council, but you also want the public to see the ideas that you have.
Whatever you guys want to do is fine.
Okay. The other thing is, Doug said, is more of the regional acting. One of the things they got ball, I mean, we're good transportation component. So we gotta get that, that's gonna be 6 months to do, isn't it? Or 6 months?
Can we get an update? I don't know, like,
As far as the
can
transportation,
we get an update of the timeframes?
what is the timeline on the transportation aspect?
Well, they're just getting started, I think they're doing traffic counts next week. This week. And I believe the whole process goes,
They could be finished by early summer, but because it's early summer, we'll keep everything open and provide
You
opportunities.
can't count the street, there's no, the traffic.
Oh, it hasn't been done now.
And then we have to be article right now, we
Yeah,
want to
so-
get between,
No, we never do.
Yeah, can't count next week.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right.
So they, the schedule is, as they've laid out, they would have a draft document in September.
But now, will this talk about the capacity? You know, what is the capacity of the roads to absorb more traffic?
They'll look at current count, look at, some recommendations, they want to, give feedback to the community as to what are the concerns, what are the trouble spots, looking at, being in keeping with what our vision is for Maple Avenue, more pedestrian-oriented, safer for pedestrians and, bicyclists, that does not necessarily mean that we're gonna have bike lanes on Maple Avenue, but just taking all that into consideration, all the modes, they'll come up, with some recommendations. Yes.
So sorry, that's 6 months. So based on that, I wouldn't do anything with that, with this transportation.
There are not going to be proposed changes to the map coming out of the transportation study. We can
You're gonna
point
be
to,
heartburned.
if we have projects coming through, and there are, and we do that now, I mean, developer has to do a TIA for any map project, so if there is an impact, they have to address that impact
Yes.
already. We just learned, the purpose of the study is to kind of step back and comprehensively look at the entire corridor and how these individual projects are affecting the whole,
Yes,
and what
and
can
how
we
these
do to be
individual projects,
proactive.
creation of traffic, impacts the relative capacity of Maple Avenue. Because we don't necessarily know whether or not any combination of these projects will push Maple Avenue over the edge where you can walk from one end of the town faster than walking down Maple Avenue. If we can't get that out of the study and the way that scope's written, I think it's how that scope's written. I've read the scope several times. Then we have a real problem in terms of what the expectations are. The other piece of the puzzle is, if coming out of that study, their conversation about bicycles and pedestrians and the street right-of-way is more refined than what we're getting out of the zoning code piece that we're doing with the design guidelines, that needs to be incorporated into the code. If there are elements related to what, as a matter of policy, the town requires in a transportation study, that needs to come out of there. I do not feel comfortable proceeding with any developer until we've got all these things together. Because right now it's ad hoc, it's whatever we spec each time. It needs to be set up consistently and informed by that study.
I would agree with that, and I would add, there's another element to it too. One thing I brought up when we discussed in a work session commissioning the transportation study is maybe we need a off-cycle comprehensive plan amendment to say we want this level of service, but we do not want to lose level of service on 123, which is directly related to the point that you just made. And then you point to that when we have applications that come in and say, okay, thank you, we understand that there's going to be potentially more traffic, and if it does, we have a policy that if there's more traffic, we're committed to maintaining level of service, or we're only going to allow X degradation of service.
And the other piece of the puzzle is where there is development, whatever kind of development, whether it's map or not, whether it's profit involved, where we set a clear expectation of what we expect in terms of if there's an impact, what the result is in terms of what the development will. It's not as an ad hoc determination of, we're going to give you a shuttle bus. No, we're going to fund X for transit.
Just, I
So,
think
but
what
this
we
is side,
came
this is
here
sidebar
for-
to this
This
conversation.
is sidebar, and I really came here to discuss design guidelines, and I understand, I appreciate all this, but I think there's a lot of
That's the
people in
complexity.
there's a lot of people in the audience that came to talk, to listen to
That's
the
fair.
design
That's fair.
guidelines, and we've spent a lot of time, which is valuable time, on the process and timelines and all that. But I think there's also a lot of substantive things that we need to discuss too, so.
So we were talking about the schedule and how aggressive it is, and honestly, the bigger issue is transportation. Nice transportation, the design line, the bigger issue, we're looking at the schedule, what can get done, what can't get done.
So, before we go on to the next part of this discussion presentation, I want to just clarify there are two questions out there. I just want to make sure I understand. The first, so is the council looking at a particular date, whether it's February 20th or 27th, to get recommendations and suggestions to the director? That can be, so which date, is 1 week out from the 6th better, or 2 weeks out?
So, I'm going to assume the planning commission is going to have a second work session on February 27th. What I'd like to do then is report out, post everything in Granicus the next day on the 28th or the March 6th. So we need to have, if there's additional information from the council, it'd be helpful to have that before.
And maybe to your point that you made earlier, if it is on the, let's say it says the 20th, then the planning commission would have access to your ideas on the 20th, and then maybe on the 27th, quite possibly. So you may have an outcome to your ideas or thoughts. That's a thought.
I just have a bandwidth issue between now and the 20th.
Okay, well, then maybe the 27th is better.
I mean, I can do stuff on the weekend, but I just can't this weekend.
So the 27th is better.
Today is the 27th.
What's a Wednesday?
I just need to follow the weekend.
What do you think about the 27th?
27th is 20.
Just your, whatever your ideas are about.
I'm on vacation next week, I'm going to Eastern Sunday.
Well, it has to be in staff and times that we,
It really
that they
does.
can turn around and make it public before the 6th of March, so I think 25th,
Okay.
you said,
I think we even have that.
26th.
I think it's a weekend, 25th.
So 27th is okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second question, just to clarify, then we can move forward, is I've heard from 3 council members the idea of syncing up the transportation outcome with the moratorium act, with the MAC itself. And so, just want to express, if that's what the council wants to do, then that's, sort of moving that direction. I've just only heard 3 council members speak to that. But it's not like it's resonating as far as.
I would like it was part of the discussion. I would like it was part of the formal discussion. Whether that ends up being the result, I think the result of the council's vote, but I would like us to discuss it.
The purpose of the presentation was just to show where we are in the process, talk over what our next steps are, how we use the results of the survey to have it inform the design guidelines. If there are specific questions or comments on the preliminary draft, we can respond to those. That concluded what we wanted to plan out to do.
I have a number of comments, but some of them are kind of ticky-tack, some of them are kind of high level. Go through them or not.
I can be the bureaucrat, though, you know.
Okay, well, here's one I'll mention is whether it's in the design guidelines or in a policies document for submission by developers, we provide some very specific guidance in terms of when a developer puts together a 3D photo rendering, isometric, that it has a very specific focal length and distance from the object. One of the things I've noticed with all 4, 5, however many applications we have for development, you look at the Chick-fil-A image versus the 444 image versus the Alexander's image from Marco Polo, it doesn't show you exactly where you are on the street relative to the physical mass of the building. And I called out the 444 people for taking it on one of their images because it really forced a perspective that was not realistic. So I think we need to provide some very specific guidelines that when they take the camera view and the 3D design software, it is X and Y and Z in terms of focal length. And the positioning and eye height and all of that stuff. And we may specify you're supposed to be across the street X feet away or something like that. That's an important thing.
Is that in the code or is that in the
Or a policy statement.
It would be in the procedure section on the map.
Right. This is just a clarification. So basically, the BAR and the Planning Commission both make independent parallel recommendations to Town Council on applications.
So the process is laid out, the Board of Architectural Review makes a recommendation to council. The Planning Commission has that information.
They can consider that.
Yes.
Okay, that's the clarification I wanted to clarify. Another thing in the design guidelines, and this is actually, these are 2 pieces I think are really important, is a number of the building forms that have come in, you think of a town, or some of those images where it's grown organically. Some of the current architectural style, quote, mimics a small building, only has 2 windows on a corner. That isn't a building. So when they create a building like form, vertical form, it needs to be wide enough to actually mimic what a real building would have been. A 2-window by 2-window corner that's a brick is not a real building that would be on a corner if you were looking at a small town built some period of time ago, for example. So it's a more modern architectural form. And I know I don't run this across into architecture, so it really will slap my hands, but you can, number of windows and the spacing is off.
Excuse me, Doug, are you talking about a particular picture here? Like-
No, look at the sunrise.
Oh, you're not talking about something.
No, but look at the sunrise rendering versus one of the forms with roof differentiation. Sunrise has two windows in the corner. And it's got 2 windows. That's not how a building would be built as an independent separate building.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay? That's not how you would build a building as an independent like structure. I think the 3 in Naples got that issue as well. There's an image in one of the pages, I can't remember which page it is. We talked about the visual weight of the lower portion of a building. Let's see if I can find the image.
Talk about first basement, ground floor, or?
Yeah, so this is page 2. So, one of the things that I regard as kind of an Arlington style in terms of big building development type things is that visual weight carries the entire length of whatever that block is. The visual weight is not specific to the vertical element. So if you look at your image with the roof differentiation, all the ground floors are different, so they have a stronger visual weight at the bottom, which is attenuated by the window bays and stuff like that. So I think you need to be careful about the language for that.
So-
that visual weight.
Like, this image, like yeah, so it's got all this heavy, like limestone type material, but it seems the entire length of a block, as opposed to being based on the visual vertical bay of the building, making, in terms of it being independent, looking at like independent structures.
So look on page 6, and maybe you need to go back to that other area too. With vertical variation of building heights are important to develop visual interest and convey a sense of scale.
Yeah.
Find some variation height in the street edge. and gives the appearance of several buildings built over time. So
Exactly.
maybe that needs to go back.
That's exactly what
So
I'm
maybe it
talking.
needs
So
to reference
if you look
that.
at that set of buildings on top of page 6, that's, if you look at the ground floors of the buildings, they vary. in
Yeah,
terms
right.
of that weight
And
at
that's
the
what
bottom
it
of the
needs, you need
building.
to have that vertical variation.
That's some kind of ticky
Just to
tack.
describe what weight is, just for, you know, in architecture, it used to be that the heavy stuff is down below because it supports the stuff up above. What happens now is a lot of times you can support whatever because it's not, you're not really using masonry and stone at the bottom, and you could make the interior floor glass if you want to. But then if you put a whole lot of really heavy materials up above, you get a feel that it's not in balance. And so this, what it does is it kind of anchors the building down, and at the street level, you have, you know, really durable materials. So it makes sense to do this.
Right.
That's the reason why that this language is there. So
And I support language generally,
Yeah.
but the thing, one of the things you see with a lot of more modern buildings, is they just do it linearly,
Right.
which is which I think is problematic.
And that's one of the big ideas coming out of the survey is the importance of vertical variation, you know, so that you have these buildings that appear to be built over time, over time.
The other thing is, and that also goes to the roof line variation, is roof line variation should be of architectural styles that would occur naturally with each other. So for example, going from a parapet wall to a mansard roof in a building next to each other is a little weird. So that's not how buildings are built in the 1920s, and that's how town built that era, right? So it needs to be architecturally, I say consistent, but period.
well, things happen at different
It
times.
doesn't happen during times, but sometimes they don't necessarily happen as incongruously, is what I'm saying.
I think as an architect, you can't get mired down into all these little ticky-tacky things. I think we want to leave the design guidelines as open as possible, because we don't know what an architect may be bringing in, and there
True.
may be reasons to put a parapet next to a
Right.
mansard, and it works well in that situation.
It
So I
might,
think,
it might not as well, is my point. We talk about seating in the zone one next to the curb. I'm not sure about that.
I'm sorry.
We talk about seating on page 16, seating in zone one next to the curb and the tree area, that's kind of weird.
I think it's how they focus, how you focus the bench. Do you put the bench towards the street, or do you put the bench towards the road?
I want to follow a conversation on the street trees and canopy trees and where that was sourced from. I'll send you my comments on that. One thing about street trees, and we should include someplace, I don't know where it goes in the design guidelines of where, is the whole concept of structured soil to support the growth of the street trees. And you can't just plant the street tree in the street tree box, you'll basically kill it after 5 years. So the more modern concept is you actually build out under the sidewalks structured soil so that the trees actually have a place for their root structure. And the other thing that I noticed we didn't really talk about wayfinding per se in here for pedestrians, nor do we talk about clearly delineated and safe pedestrian paths for bicycles and parking lots and garages, which, you know, we need to have some level of requirement for that. Because right now, if you're going to a parking lot, you're kind of left to your own devices. You know, good luck trying to walk across that some days. You know, the more modern approach is you actually provide designated pathways through parking lots and with the appropriate wayfinding so people know where they're going. The others just kind of ticky tack, and I'll send that to you in an email. One last quick point, we need to figure out a better way of describing planter boxes relative to street lighting. I mean, it's a very generic thing in there, but it doesn't seem to quite match up between the two different places where it's mentioned. So that's my 2 cents in the nickel's worth.
I actually have a lot. Which, I think that it's getting late, there's other things on the agenda, so I'll send most of them. But I did want to bring up a couple things that seem to be different than what's in the code, and I wanted some clarification. On the pre-application meeting section under review process, it says the DPZ staff will also schedule at least one work session with the applicant and the Board of Architecture Review, Planning Commission, and Town Council prior to the submission of a rezoning. That's something new that's not in the MAC process. Is that a new adopted standard? Is that they will at least work with one of all three or all three of them? So are we adding time to the process for a developer or an owner to come through the MAP process? And also, secondly, is that for all, or is that for just the large ones? Because I know that when we were initially doing the MAP, it was a very prescribed process that they wanted, that was intentional to start with the Board of Architecture Review to review over those things first, as opposed to the normal process that we normally do. So, so what I would like to know is how much extra time that would be, if it would be for an additional, for large size projects, which kind of makes sense, or is it for all processes?
It is the practice that we have been following before we even allow, we'll accept an application in. We are saying we need to have a pre-app meeting, or we need to have a work session with these various committees to make sure that we're comfortable with what you're providing feedback so that when you submit your application. We can codify that. We had not talked about codifying, but it is more a practice that the staff is following. But it is not, currently is not a requirement in the MAP.
I guess I just worry about staff time on this, and
We find it helpful to have those
Okay.
work sessions before the applications.
Okay. And also, I'd like to just throw something out, is that maybe instead of that, there was a citizen who suggested having a period of time that the documents are available, and that people could go and look at them, and view them, and all that, and that it would be up, it would be posted, and so what I was thinking is, could we kind of consolidate the public engagement meeting with the neighbors, maybe a presentation that included the Board of Architecture Review, Planning Commission, and come to maybe 2 meetings. So there would be one at the beginning, which would be kind of like the big reveal, and there would be one at the end that would be kind of like a commentary type of thing before it goes through. So it would be the pre-application meeting would include the public engagement with neighbors and all that together, everybody all together as a meeting, to kind of have an introductory time to kind of everybody look at it, and then kind of a summary of pulling things together.
So is this happening before an application is submitted? We
Yes.
don't, so we don't post anything until we have an actual application. I mean, I would,
I think that's brilliant.
Good, yeah. I'll convey my observation. 444 when it came in, our former planning director, deputy planning director, Howard, and I, we wanted to have a meeting, we had a meeting with them and their attorney. 2 of us basically said, as you presented it, this is DOA. Now, people may argue with what we ended up with on the back end, but the first thing, it looked like they built it in Boston. And we told them it was dead on arrival. I'm not sure it's fair to a developer not to have that feedback at the outset.
and that's the purpose of the work sessions, I guess, and I'm gonna
That would save a
loop
work
in
session.
the town attorney. We normally do not post or provide to the public anything that has not been formally submitted as an application. Because it hasn't been formally submitted as an application. So the question is, if we have a proposal, not an application yet, but a proposal, could we post that for the public to view, not an application?
If I was a developer, I wouldn't do it. Because they want to get feelings, and they want to bounce things off people. That's why they do it. you asked.
But it's not posted on the agenda?
We don't,
Or you want to make it a public document.
we don't normally, until we have.
They
a
want to come in and
completed
show you plans,
application.
and they may not even make a copy of that.
Right, yeah,
That's
just
normally
say here's
what
what we're
they do.
thinking
What
and
do
then
you
walk
think?
away with it.
They won't make those appointments if you say, well, the only way we'll meet you because we're posted publicly. They're coming to bounce ideas off so they don't waste time on architectural and engineering design. That's why they do it. They don't want to spend all the time, so it's a concept. And they're not trying to get anybody fired up, they're trying to get the input. Actually, I think the contrary. If it's dead on arrival, they want to know
They
earlier
don't
than
spend time
later.
and money.
Pardon me?
They don't want to spend the time and money.
That's right.
Okay. I was just, that was a question of trying, instead of having, staff time, developer, all the boards and commissions and council meeting at different times, having just kind of one big happy reveal and one
I
big.
mean, that's another, we've done both, we've had joint work sessions with planning commission and council on ideas coming in, we've had separate. I'm open to that. I do like having those work sessions before, because I think it also helps the applicant to kind of fine tune their indication before it comes in. with the clock, and sort of review and everything.
Yeah, I just want to be mindful that it's not putting too much of a burden on, the developer, on staff, on boards and commissions, because we are, by putting this in here, we are adding to the time that it takes for a proposal to go out the door.
But again, more time spent up front is actually better.
I kind of think that 444 is a perfect example, because the lack of work sessions that we had up front led to them taking off the table the 100 days that it took for us to vote on their proposal. And I think if they had more work sessions on the front side of it, I think that we could have had a vote on it earlier. I think that's partly where that project was a little bit, we've only had, 4? So it's sort of like three? Out of the ordinary from the first two, because the first two that came, we had multiple work sessions before they even put it in an application. They really wanted to hear, and then they came back with a revision, and they wanted to hear what we had to say about that, and then they came back, so for that, and that process sort of made the process go along a little bit more smoothly, because we had so many work sessions up front where we could give our feedback, they could come back, we could give more feedback, they could come back, we could give more feedback. So I think that at least the planning commission and council should have at least one work session before the application is submitted. Because once the application is submitted, there's no time, but there's the time of staff time, and there's the time of the expectation that the developer actually something that we move on it on a reasonable time frame. We would want that for any sort of rezoning application, just because that makes us a good government rather than, someplace that we work with.
That's fine with me. I thought I'd just throw it out there. So, one thing on these things is maybe put this in a graphic form, the Maple Avenue vision and the review process as some sort of kind of interesting graphic, maybe a flow chart.
We talked about, we have some
Okay.
space, yeah, we talked about the review process.
Okay, sorry. And then, let's see. I think that also, maybe tying some of these things in with what, these main principles are, might be a good idea. In the design guidelines to say what it hits and what it doesn't. And because what I did is I went ahead and did that and just said, are we kind of covering these things? And I noticed that we don't really talk about the concept of mixed use in here, like what comes with mixed use, and perhaps what are the things that designers need to think about, like vibration, sound attenuation, and things like that, which are part of a mixed-use building that I think that they need, or sound isolation, that they need to think about if they're mixing uses. And I'd also, let's see.
Lighting as well.
Yeah, lighting, I have a lot of comments on
Yeah.
lighting, because I think that's what citizens are really, there's a couple things that citizens really are talking about. I think that we also don't talk about how to address, like passageways and alleys effectively, about, about pedestrian and service and access, like minor access points, because those are things that I think that we're always talking about in our reviews and in, how traffic flows, how trash, all those services work out, like how to address deliveries, curbside management is something that I think is going to be really a big one, about delivering packages, screening. We don't really talk about screening like trash, and because those are all things that get brought up. Passenger access for like Ubers, Lyfts, all those type of things. Loading, unloading, and let's see. We also don't really address parking in here as a design, because really parking is part of the design. And I think that could be also brought into this discussion about design.
We have some guidance on structure. You mean, are you talking structured or more surface, if there's surface parking lots?
Well, what I'm looking at is some of your pictures address some of the things, which is, I'm assuming there's screening for cars that might be parked in a residential zone, that you're screening, that they have a garage door and they also have parking right outside, and then you have a screening there. You're not really, you kind of show it in a picture, but you're not really addressing the screening portion of it, which I think.
That was my passageway thing.
Yeah, I think that.
Trees within the parking, surface parking, and a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there that I think could be picked up, just as a, adding some things to, because it's not all gonna be structured parking. And that's a lot of the comments that we had, at least on the Vienna Market, was about how circulation of through garages and things like that work. And it doesn't have to be very detailed, but you need to have, I think, pull those major elements in, because they've been major points of discussion throughout.
Actually, Carrie, you just reminded me of one thing I didn't mention as part of my comments, was that, when we wrote the MAC guidelines, we put this kind of side yard setback in on the interlock sign, but, if you have a parcel next to a parcel next to a parcel next to another street block. But if you look, say, at the pictures on page 1 of the design guidelines, all those buildings are right next to each other. And that's not how we wrote this. So that works if it's one person developing a lot, but it doesn't work if you've got several adjoining lots that are a big block. And I think we revisit that, because alleys or arcades or like walkways, that's one thing. But creating a whole series of like X-foot setbacks between buildings along Maple Avenue isn't how any of these images are created.
Right.
So I think we need to revisit that. I hadn't. I'm
It's
sorry.
building setbacks, because actually one of the things that the code gets more detailed in as far as dimensions and
Right.
after so long of a building, or even if you're multiple parcels. So we try to, there's a few means to talk about like what those building setbacks would look like, but we do, when we get into the code, get more in depth about.
Conversation about that, because what we're trying to achieve in terms of what is the look of a set of buildings that would mimic what a small town would be that was developed over there. Sorry.
No, that's exactly what I'm just throwing out,
Mhm.
like, big things.
This is-
I've thought about a whole bunch
That's a
of
big-
little
that
things.
to me is a big thing,
To
actually.
me, I think it's a big thing. And so I do have a whole bunch of things that maybe I'll talk directly with about,
Do you mind if I added on to that big thing that you were both just talking about? I didn't think that this would be part of the design guidelines, but if we're talking about those subjects, one thing that I think is important is encouraging multimodal transportation, Uber, Lyft, non-car transportation. And if we're talking about alleyways, arcades, and designs for parking, that's probably an element of that.
Okay, also on page 2.5, we're talking about placemaking and public art. I think that there needs to be a real focus on this. It's on page 27, I'm sorry. Sorry, page 25. I think that a lot of the discussion that we've had and in the MAC is about placemaking. And what we've defined there is great. It's about public art. I think we need to define what public spaces are, that they promote healthy happiness and well-being. That's what placemaking is. And so, we know what placemaking is, but we need to define what placemaking is. And it needs to be in addition to just sidewalk seating, because that's one aspect of placemaking that we define further back. But I think that we need to make placemaking tailored to Vienna. What does Vienna want? Do we want to add that we'd like a place for a farmer's market? So if there's a development that comes forward that could propose something like a farmer's market, that would be an idea that's not public art. That would be something that would be a placemaking kind of thing. Talk about adding cultural, civic, or recreational aspects, more than just public art. I mean, I love public art and everything, but I think that there's other things that a project could bring to Vienna that would be an enhancement and make a place. And so we need to define whether that placemaking is tied to the development that's coming in, or is it something that's tied to a greater Vienna? I mean, when we're talking about plazas, public parks and things like that, what does Vienna want more than just whatever that use is? So there may be opportunities to get some things, to check some things off of what Vienna wants in this. And that might be too deep of a dive for this, but I thought it would be good to have a conversation about what placemaking is.
I think that's really helpful. I just want to caution, because we don't have a parks master plan and there's an identified need for a park in some location. I mean, these are private spaces. So, but I like the idea of kind of looking, I could look at our list and they're more physical. I kind of like define placemaking a little broader than that. So I think there's some.
Okay,
Yeah,
do we sit down when we do a park master plan and decide that we want to park someplace? And, I mean, so I sit on the Tyson's, Greater Tyson. Yeah, so, and, I mean, one of the things Tyson's has is, no matter the amount of square footage you have to set aside some sort of space or money for field and for open space. And so is that something that we want to think about as a town, that, you might not be able to have an open space on the project as it's designed, but that doesn't mean that there can't be specific guidelines for money that's set aside, so that if we have 3 MAC projects, then we have X number of dollars, and if something pops up, we can buy it. And we can have, someplace within town that is a public park that everybody can use, but that increases our green space, because what do you say though, like, we're not making any more land in Vienna.
I think he says
Oh,
that.
how does
I
that?
think Steve actually
But,
said that.
if we identify something in the future, whether it's a historic property, whether it is, a pseudo-historic property that might have a lot of land to it, but if we have money in a fund, because we've asked as part of the development process, that one of the goals is for more green space, then that's the money that we're all talking about, like, how do we find more place for pocket parks? How do we find more money for an additional park? Well, maybe it's from this development process, because and the goal is we want more green space in town. And, asking on the law, if there happens to be a project that is a giant piece of property, or giant, but if it's giant, maybe part of that has to be a green space. Because there is a really large piece of property that's being developed. But if it's not, if it's these little pieces, then we put money in an account, or we hold money aside, so that when something does come up, we have the money for it, and it's not necessarily, it's part of the CIP, but it's
The
not
trick is you
going
have to
out
have
of
a
line.
master plan to support it.
Absolutely,
That's the problem.
that's what we have to work.
But we are
for that
getting
as
it
well.
because we don't have the park master plan yet.
Or it has to be part of the comprehensive plan.
Well, so we are addressing that in a couple ways. We thought the open space set aside,
Yeah.
the requirement for building breaks is now quantified and suggested.
Don't you think the idea-
We're coming at it in a couple ways, but the park master plan would really help in getting security coffers for.
Exactly.
I mean, a quick point on a follow-up to her thing, Joe. Also, Pittsburgh is not just about physical place, it's also
Right.
about those events that use that space.
Yes.
And just as an example, there was a really great article in this month's Finding magazine about music venues.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying that's what we necessarily want in Vienna.
But why
There was a really, well, that's
Yeah.
a question in the community, I think.
Yeah.
And the adjacent neighbors, but, it's a given day lounge. But that was one idea. There are many other ideas in terms of activities from that space. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, we got a property.
No. Can I say one more comment on that? I think you touched on one of the most important issues here. And I absolutely think placemaking is very important. I totally agree with that. Now I'm going to express my opinion. This might not be everybody's opinion. But my opinion is, if we're talking about MAC amendments, perhaps one of them is increasing the open space requirement and emphasizing through design guidelines that you engage in this placemaking.
There will be changes.
I agree.
There are significant changes.
And my sense of the politics, and we haven't done a survey on that, and this is not objective, my sense of it is, I think that's something that people are really looking for, and a lot of attention will be relieved if that is addressed.
Well, in our citizen survey, they did say open space was one of the things, that was one of the things people asked for, you mentioned, and then also,
We're talking Cindy, quick question. As part of the amendment stuff you and the planning commission are going to look towards, are you looking at revisiting the incentives table and the weighting of the incentives table?
Yes.
Thank you, okay. That's all I need to know. I'll look at it when we get to
Just
it.
maybe more of a nexus between incentives and.
That's all we're doing to property.
Can I just ask, the Big Roof picture, maybe we could expand out on that or something? I don't really quite get what that picture is. It's on page 7.
Yes. It's like,
And then on page 8, we're talking about canyon effect between buildings, but I think the canyon effect, if I get it right, is the canyon effect as is like on a street, right? So this really isn't applicable here, so I would kind of strike the term canyon effect, because that's in line.
Okay, so I kind of remember what I was saying about placemaking. Can we just add, so we have 7 applicable placemaking, we could say not, these are some acceptable to the planning placemaking, but we can add that, maybe put some of the placemaking things like a farmer's market or something that are less tangible, add those to the list. One other thing, I think, and kind of go down that road a bit more. And maybe we separate out placemaking and public art separate. When you create it separately, like you just write, you say placemaking, that's what it is, and public art separate.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of,
The public art isn't necessarily place-based, right?
No,
Like, you think, it could be,
Yeah.
could be, but you think of the big mural on the backside of the Old Burgers, like, that is public art, but it's not necessarily a place to gather unless you're gonna sit like that. Tailgate or something, but, it's not necessarily a place.
Somebody profit,
So
Steve.
does anyone, does anyone else have any comments?
I have other comments on email, and I'll copy folks on email. For information only.
Thank
Comments,
you.
right?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so they've done an amazing job.
Really
For the
impressive,
staff, they've done an
thank you.
amazing job, very professional.